Welcome back, everyone, to the tutorial of the React Lifecycle. This is Practical IT. If you like what you are getting so far, please don't forget to subscribe and like the videos. In the previous one, we have seen different parts of like the lifecycle methods that we have been using. And on this one, we're going to use the last part of the lifecycle, which is the component will unmount. And basically, the component will unmount is going to be just called right before the component is going to be just taken out of like the DOM. So we have seen a couple of components being added on this page. And just to remind you, we have like the app.js, which is including the child. And then inside the child, we have like the life cycle. And then this is where we were adding like a bunch of life cycles over here. And when would the component will unmount would be called is when, as I've said, when the component is ready to be taken out of the DOM. And there are a couple of scenarios that can happen. The first one is when there is an exception that's going to be just thrown somewhere on the page, and that's going to be just associated either with this one, with the current component that we're dealing with, or its parent, or for that matter, it's going to be just the grandparent. In that case, this component is going to be just taken out of the DOM, and hence the component will unmount is going to be just called. And the other scenario is on a couple of scenarios, like the parent of the component, which in this case is going to be the child, can be taken out of like the DOM. And in that, when that is happening, since the life cycle is a child of like the child over here, then when the child is no more available on the DOM, then immediately the life cycle might not be available on that one as well. And when that happens, then that would also create a problem. So the other problem that we're having, as I've mentioned, is if we have like somewhere that we're going to be just throwing an error. So in this case, I'm trying to have it like as an example, when we're updating the number, and then when we're reaching to the 7, beyond the 7 that is, then we're going to be just throwing an error. And then in that case, it would show that's going to be just one example of like putting or taking out of like the life cycle from that one. So with that, let's have like a very simple thing over here, and then say console.log bye-bye. And in reality, then you might be wondering what would be the benefit of having the component will unmount. And that would be just if you have anything to clean up, especially on a known or controlled kind of just taking out like the component. If there are anything that you have subscribed for, or if there are like the things or resources that you have been using, then this would be a very good opportunity for you just to take out of to release that resources, and then to have like a, just a free of like the resources for that one, because we're not going to be just using it like anymore over here. But for now, we're going to be just showing like very simply, then when that is happening in this particular case, we're going to force just to throw an error by using like our counter over here. And if our counter is greater than 7, or when it is reaching, like when this one is no more true, then it's going to throw an error. And then by then, like the whole DOM is going to be just having a problem, and at that moment the component will unmount is going to be just called. So if we go here, and I'm going to have like the inspect over here on the console, so I'm going to increment this one. Then as you can see, like when I'm reaching to that point, then this has actually thrown an error. And if you take a look, there is this part which says like the bye-bye, and that's going to be just the lifecycle just on line 33, which is this one. So right before, once it is just creating this one, then there is going to be just a chance which is going to be given for us to have this kind of error to be thrown. And then that's going to be just handled in the component will unmount. So if there is anything that is going to be just making the component not to be visible or to be taken out of the DOM, then that's going to be just called within like the component will unmount. Probably later, actually we can just do it like very quickly as well. Another example that we can come up is, let me reload this thing again. Another example that we can come up is like if the child is no more available. Like let's say if we're going to be just taking out the child from the DOM, then the lifecycle component is not going to be just available because the parent has already been taken out. what we can do is we can do like, we're going to take a look on this one again when we take a look on the partial loading, but let's assume that we're going to be just adding, let me have like this one, button type, button and on click, and I'm going to have this that show, let's say show child or hide child. Let's call it hide child. So the idea is when I'm clicking on this one, then the child is going to be just hidden, hide child. So for that, let's go ahead and then just create like the hide child, hide child, and we can do it like the older way. And I'm going to have one more state over here. Let me have show child true. I'll explain a bit more on this one. This is just to show like partially like part of the case. So in this, what I'm going to do is, as long as I can say this dot state dot show child is true, then I want to render the child. Otherwise, I don't want to render the child. Again, if this, let me have this thing a little bit wider. If in case if this is not going to be just that much clear, just we're going to get back to this one on partial rendering. But all I want to show you is whenever there is a chance to take out the child from the DOM, then immediately like the lifecycle unmount hook is going to be just triggered. And one way to do that one is we're going to click a button and then we're going to switch the state of the show child from a true to a false. And when that happens, then this is not going to be just rendered and lifecycle won't be called. So we're going to hide a child, and inside this one, we're going to do, let me do it the easiest way, state equals this that state, and state that show child equals false, and this that set state equals going to be just state. And the hide child, since we have done it like the older way, it's not like the ES6 format. What it means is we have to add it here. This dot hide child equals this dot hide child dot bind then this. That way it would identify like what this is. Otherwise, it won't know what this stands for, and that might create a problem. So I think we're done with this one. All right. So if we go back, if everything is fine and I'm not missing anything, so it is over here. I can add it like inside the header. That's why it is a little bit outside. So I can take this one and add it here, just so that's going to be just more visible, just like this one. And if everything is working fine, then I'm going to click on this one, and you can see that bye-bye is going to be just called. And what happened is when I'm clicking on a button, then the child component is taken out of the DOM, because this part is now going to be just rendered anymore. When you really think about it, this one is just a normal JavaScript. When this one is false, everything with the end is now going to be just rendered. And then this is how we're going to just do like the partial rendering. Again, as a reminder, we're going to get back on what partial rendering is and how we achieve that one. But for this particular purpose, what I want you to show you is when you're clicking a button and part of the page is taken out. And when that is happening, this lifecycle component, the will-unmount, is going to be just called. And that's going to be just the end of the lifecycle of like that specific component. And if there is anything that I want to do right before it's going to be just taken out, then that is where we're going to be just doing. All right. So this is all about like the unmount lifecycle. And we're going to we're going to take a look on a couple more on React lifecycle on the next video. Thank you very much. And don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. And I'll see you friends on the next video, and see ya.